rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Again I say rejoice.
All right, grab a seat. So we're going to talk this morning about the ripple effect. So you may have noticed we're doing things a little bit differently. We're going to take a collection at the end of service. But what we want to do this morning is really just kind of talk about what we give and how it affects the people around us. So I want to start with a scripture. So this is, I did a little bit of research. This is written by Paul to the church in Corinth. And just to make this a little bit more real for us, if Paul had written this to Edmonton, then I'm going to read it as though Paul had written it to Edmonton, okay? It says, there is no need for me to write to you about this service to the Lord's people, for I know your eagerness to help, and I have been boasting about it to the British Columbians, telling them that since last year, you in Alberta were ready to give, and your enthusiasm has stirred most of them into action. And it's just kind of, this is Paul writing specifically to Corinth, but if he were writing to Edmonton, it would be the action that they gave to give, the action that we gave to give has spurred other people on to give, our neighbors, right? Which is what Macedonia was to the people in Corinth. That's where that came from. But so we're going to share a few things, and what we want to do is we're going to have some people share about the effect that our giving has had. Before I do that, this is just an image. You can kind of see what that is. That's water. I'm going to show you a video of a rock falling in the water. Okay. Where this came from, let me give you a little bit more background. As Maya and I were talking about what we're going to give and how we're giving to special missions and to the church, we had to kind of take a second and just kind of step back because sometimes giving can just be so automated, right? Sometimes it can just be we're just giving because that's what we do, right? It's part of our budget. It's in there. It's a thing that we do, and I believe personally that automation is a good thing, right? With the Tithely app that we have, we're able to actually automate our giving so that it just comes out automatically. We do things like automating our bill payments, right? Different things that we do that automate and take out the mundane to just kind of roll. But the problem with that, sometimes it becomes so automatic that we don't actually think about it, right? And in some things, that's fine. If you don't think about paying your power bill and your lights are still on, that's okay, right? But when we're giving to something like God, which is the church, it's something that matters, right? Something that has an effect, which is what we're going to talk about. But we need to take a second and step back and look at what we're doing and why. Maya came up with this idea of the ripple effect. And I'm going to show you this video. So if you imagine this water is people, okay? So it's the people that are close to us. It's the people that's around us, our neighbors, our coworkers, our school friends, the people in Edmonton, even the people across Alberta and across the country, even around the world. This water represents those people. So watch what happens here when we throw our gift, which is a rock in this case, but a gift into the water. There's an effect, right? First it's immediate, but it spreads. And we're affecting now the people around us, the people in Edmonton. And as the ripple gets bigger, we're affecting the country. We're affecting the people around the world, really, right? And it's pretty cool when you think about it, the effect that we can have, even though, let me grab this. Whoops. Sorry, that was my bad. The effect that we have in, I'll just play the whole video again, that's okay. So as we show the rock falling, and it's affecting everything, the initial impact is just tiny, right? But it spreads. And if we didn't have that impact, if we never gave a gift, that water would still be still. our impact would either be non-existent or it would be so minimal that it wouldn't be noticed. But what we're giving and what we're doing is having an impact on the people around us. So we're going to talk this morning about some of those things that we give. I should know better than to do that. It's my job. But we're going to talk this morning about some of the things that we give to. One of the things is events. We're able to have events put on by the church because of what we give, right? And what we're going to have, I have a few people that are going to come up and talk. Things like the marriage weekend, marriage events that we put on. Michael's going to come and share about that. We also have things like the women's talk that we put on last winter, and also the Frozen Chosen things for the men. So we're going to have a few people come up. Michael's going to come up and share about the marriage events.
All right, that was a really cool video about the ripple effect, because like Shayne said, we can come, we can give, whether it's on a Sunday or on a special missions, and we don't really see the effect that it has, not only with us as a body, but us personally. So I'm going to talk about the marriage retreat. So in 2000, we got married. We're still married, by the way. If you're wondering, she's in class, everything's good at home. So we're still married, we're happily married, so that's awesome. So during the wedding, we made a promise to each other to be faithful to each other to the end. And during the wedding day, it was awesome, exciting. First few weeks were still awesome and exciting, but then a year or 2 or 3 or 15, and then you lose that excitement over time. So question is, have you ever picked up a really good book on marriage or self-help and thought, man, it would be so cool to meet the author? This is where the marriage retreat comes in. Because at a marriage retreat, we get to meet really cool people who fly in from our fellowship and teach us. And from the marriages that have gone, we've had some phenomenal speakers. We've had the Brumleys come in, we've had the Overstreets, the Kellys, the Jungs, and 2 years ago we had the Mancinis. And the marriage retreat for us is an awesome time to be re-inspired, because again, sometimes over time, we lose that excitement about our marriage. Because of the church's generosity through special missions giving or regular contribution, we have had an amazing experience at the marriage retreat. And here's a list of a couple things how it's impacted us. One, when we go to the marriage retreat, it's out of Edmonton, which is awesome. We get to travel. We love talking on our drives down, talking on a deeper level than day to day. We get a ton of incredible advice and ideas which leads to practicals lived out, which strengthens us. We get to reconnect as marrieds with our old friends, and we get to go out to eat and party. It's awesome, such a great time. Also, it's the little things like the weekend that communicates big things. This is where the ripple comes in. Because we may think, church supports a marriage retreat. We go, but our kids watch. They see us put our marriages as top priority. We are developing great habits to put into our marriage. And as a guy, when I pay for a marriage retreat, my wife is happy. So happy wife, happy life. So church, on behalf of my wife and I, thank you so much for your generosity supporting the marriage retreats, because they're a blast and they're awesome. Thank you.
I get to share why women's events matter. So about 5 months ago, we hosted the Women's Coffee Talk here at the Nook Cafe. And wow, the ambiance was intimate and cozy. As you can see, there's like the little lights. And the speakers shared nuggets of wisdom in each talk. So again, thank you, speakers. To be honest, I wasn't in the mood to go. I was tired and experiencing health challenges, but I called up a sister of mine, and she also wasn't feeling it either. She was only weeks from having delivered and was tired as well. So we made a date to hang out and encourage one another by attending the event. We also stopped at the art gallery along the way. It was lovely. I also had a friend attend as well, and as I said I would if we ever had another women's event again. She attended the one that we hosted back in the fall of 2015 at Grant MacEwan. And she said to make sure that we let her know when we were having another event. She just loved it, the one in 2015. And this time she brought friends to attend with her as well. So they filled in a whole entire table to themselves. So we got to laugh, we got to share in discussion, and enjoyed some good food. Notice there's the food thing going on here. Sorry, I love food. At the end of the evening, I was so glad that my friend and I got to enjoy our date together, and she won a prize too, and that so many women were encouraged and still speak of the lessons they learned and took away. So all the events, retreats, and conferences that we've held to meet the needs and encourage and connect women have been great for building up our sisters in our family here, as well as other women who have attended and have been impacted and inspired. So I just wanted to thank you for your continuous contribution that helps events like this to happen. Thanks.
Hi, it's me again. Okay, so this is Frozen Chosen, as you can see. I like Frozen Chosen because you get to hang out with friends that you haven't seen in a while if they go to Calgary, and just friends that you have here in an open field where you can play games and stuff. But it's also fun because all the other people there, all the adults who tell you stories about their life and stuff, and it's like, and they also play some fun games with dominoes, I guess. But some other things that I really like about it is you get to play hockey with them on the Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday, a day before we leave, and you just first get Calgary, and it's just fun playing with them and winning sometimes. But I also like it when we gather around a fire on Saturday and watch a movie after and just sing songs and talk and just enjoy the time there. And it's also good because Corbin got baptized there and it was really fun. Yeah. Just watching him, and yeah, that's why I love Frozen Chosen.
I'm also talking about Frozen Chosen, and it's kind of cool because for a number of years, I mean, we started this years ago with Jeremy, kind of got things going, and then Calgary, they did some things, so guys like Gary Lawrence started putting this together of going in winter camping, and it just started catching fire. You know, at first it was only a few guys, and over the years it's kind of grown. And when we started going to Pine Lake, originally, we actually used quite a bit of money from the church, so through special missions, through the giving that we have, and then we kind of allocated a little bit of funds to make sure that we could do Frozen Chosen as kind of the men's event for the year. And it's really taken off. I mean, if you look at it over the years, you know, starting with maybe 10, 15 people, now we're up over 90 typically. And we've also, the reach has kind of extended out. We've got guys coming in from Spokane and Toronto, and the ripple effect that, you know, Shayne was talking about is quite powerful. You know, not only have we, you know, guys like Jim Tetley came a couple of years ago and brought his brother from Ed Tetley here, but Jim went back and wrote a book, you know, and then that book has been having ripple effects into other cities and other countries around the world, talking about just being spiritual and being a man and igniting your faith. And so we see that, and the joy that we have as being a family, you know, being able to watch Corbin and Logan, of course, but grow up through that. And, and where now Corbin gets baptized at Frozen Chosen. It's a very exciting thing for us, and we want to see more and more of that as time goes on. So the money that we collect and the things that we do continues to have that ripple effect, and I think it's really important. It's a great event. It's a lot of hard work for some of the guys, a lot of the guys, but it's one of those things that is just fundamental, such an important piece of the church. And now we're mostly self-funded. We've been profitable the last couple of years, which is great, and we want to see that really extend out. We're starting to plan already for 2020 and push that out, see if we can get more disciples from Disciples Today and getting out there across the globe. So, continue to pray for that. But again, thank you for the contributions, and continue to give into that because it makes a big difference in the church.
So those are some of the things that we do with events, with our giving, that we're able to help fund or to start or to help to keep growing. So another thing that we do is we have out-of-town speakers, people who come in, and our giving helps to pay for either their trips or helps to pay for their food or their hotel while they're here, things like that, because they don't live here, hence out of town. So we have had many people over into Edmonton over the years. We've had people from across Canada, right from the East Coast to the West. We've had people across the States. And one particular couple that came was the Falushkos, and we're going to have Connie come up and just share something that impacted them from her.
Thank you. So sometimes as a church, we can become stagnant, set in our ways, and bringing in a guest speaker is a way that we can help to expand our perspectives. So just to share from a personal perspective, in the past, when I would share about my struggles, I would get a lot of responses like, you just need to pray more, you're not depressed, you're being selfish, you're too negative, you need to be more outward focused. Seeking outside counseling was not something that was really looked highly upon. I was deep in despair, and there wasn't a lot of compassion and understanding for what I was experiencing. So the Balians, thank you, have been amazing in their support for me, and I see how they have helped to change the culture of our church in this regard. And one of the ways that they have done this is by bringing in guest speakers like the Falushkos, who I absolutely love, they're amazing. So Sarah came in and did a Journey to Hope workshop for us, and Brian and Sarah both led a Different by Design marriage conference for us. So both of these workshops, they encouraged us to learn about ourselves and how to better communicate with each other. They also inspired us to treat each other with love and compassion. So Brian and Sarah helped to normalize the fact that sometimes we get stressed and sometimes we have negative emotions, and that's okay. Emotions are just a part of who we are. So for me, it helped to break down the barrier of the guilt and the shame that I felt for just being me. And so I'd just like to share a little excerpt that I found online. It's How to Effectively Use a Guest Speaker for a Breakthrough Event by Pastor Brian Kaluth. And so what he says is, in the world of farming, farmers change the depth of the plow periodically to avoid hard pack. Hard pack is what happens when the plow is kept at the same depth and the dirt forms a hard crust below the surface that doesn't allow water or the seed's roots to grow. Guest speakers can be used by God to allow the seed of His Word and living water to break through this spiritual hard pack in our congregation. God can powerfully move through a guest speaker to bring genuine life change and spiritual transformation. So again, as everyone else has said, I'd like to thank you for your giving and your contributions, because it does help to bring in these speakers that can help us grow and change our perspectives.
Awesome. Thanks, Connie. One of the other things that we are able to do because of the contributions and the money that we give is giving to the next generation. We are a church that believes in the next generation. These guys sitting up here. We believe that it's important. Most of them don't have jobs. So us giving to them helps them to do things like have youth devos and go to youth camp. It's actually a big part of what we allocate our special missions to. So we're going to have Zach and Amanda come up and share just a couple thoughts on that.
Hi, I am Zach, and I'd like to share an awesome quote. It takes a village to raise a child. My village is the high school ministry, and I want to thank you, the church, for making my village super rad. Because of your generosity, we have a high school budget for food. I tend to eat my parents' entire fridge often, so this helps us not needing to buy a new fridge, so that's great. I also want to thank you for making it possible to get to camp. Camp's awesome, and there's so much at camp to learn about God. It's such a great opportunity, helps us youth a lot to mature and become adults. Thank you a lot.
Hello, so my name is Amanda. For me, teen camp has a very special place in my heart because of the impact it's had on me. I'm sad I'm not going to be able to go this coming year because your girl graduated already. But I do have intentions of coming back as a counselor. So why does teen camp have such a special place in my heart? So before joining the church here, basically my mindset in my life I felt was in a not very good place. I was very insecure about myself. I had no confidence. And just I felt very alone in general. And I was at a time where I was struggling to see God in my life. I felt that at the time I wasn't deserving of any love or attention, and that because I didn't see God work in my life, that why is there even a God in my life? Why is there even a God at all? So then eventually by Jillian, I got invited to join this church. And I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought I'm just gonna visit once and then not come back again. But something about it struck me different, very different from my old Ukrainian Orthodox church. And I thought, hey, maybe there is a God. And I started to become more into this church, and I eventually just stayed. And that's when I found out about teen camp. And again, I didn't know what to expect. But I knew I wanted to go because, hey, I got to leave the country, and that was cool. Because traveling, that's fun. I knew about all the activities and the events at camp that were happening, and I knew about the lessons. But little did I know how those lessons would have an impact on me, and how the whole experience of camp would impact me as well. It's hearing people share their stories about God, how He worked in their lives, both counselors and teens. Hearing how they come from struggling places as well, struggles like depression, addiction, all that, and how they've managed to find God and follow Him as disciples. And it made me realize something, that really I don't walk alone. I realized that other people share hardships as well, and that even if I do feel alone, I know that God is with me. I've made many memories and many friends, and that I miss to this day, and that I still keep in contact with from time to time. And most importantly, I made the decision to follow God and study the Bible, and eventually I became a disciple. And really, without camp, who knows if I would have ever made that decision to make Jesus Lord of my life. And without camp, I wouldn't know how great God really is. And it's really because of your funding towards events like camp and all these youth events, that your funding towards these events help have an effect on people's lives, because it sure did have an effect on mine. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda and Zach. Good job. So those are some of the things that we have an impact on, and we create that ripple effect just from our giving. Some other things. So that's a lot of the local things. Those are the people that we could ask in our own congregation that our giving has an impact on, right? The thing is that we give to things, and we have over the years given to missions across Canada and internationally as well. Some of those different things are the local operations, things like renting this facility is part of the money that we collect. Things like having different events, the things that we talked about, the special events that we talked about. Like I said, we've given to mission work across Canada in the past, and in the past we've given to work in Russia. Just places that need help, and we're able to help, right? That's where the things that we've given money to. Another thing is the Strength and Weakness Ministry, which is Canadian-based but has an impact around the world. And we actually have a video here by Guy Hammond just thanking us for that, and he's going to explain a little bit.
Hi, my name is Guy Hammond, and I am the Executive Director of an organization called Strength and Weakness Ministries. Our purpose is to offer support and help to Christians who live with unwanted same-sex attractions, and to educate Christians around the world on issues surrounding homosexuality, transgender issues, and the like. For the last few years, you as a congregation have been offering us support, and I just wanted to reach out to you through this video to express my immense gratitude for all that you've done for us. There's not any one church or person or organization that supports us. We just live off of donations of individuals and churches like yourself who recognize the need for a ministry like this within our brotherhood. So I just wanted to tell you thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and your kindness. When you take up your contributions there in your church, when you have your special missions contribution, we're one of the recipients of your kindness. And so I just wanted to tell you how grateful we are. You'll never know this side of heaven the names of those who you've helped, but trust me, they are in the thousands. Thank you very much, and God bless.
So that's one more area of impact that we have on people. And I just wanted to kind of finish off here with one more scripture. This is continuing Paul's letter and what he says to the Christians that we're giving. He says, yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous. When we take your gifts to those who need them, they will thank God. Just like we saw Guy Hammond and everybody that was up here thanking us for the gifts that we've given. They're not necessarily thanking us, they are, but they're thanking God because of those gifts. And that's the impact that we can have. It's not just the people around us. It's pointing people towards God, right? And that's our main purpose as disciples, is to point people towards God, help them to meet God. And this is a way that we can do that, by giving financially and giving it to the people who need it. They're going to say, thank you, God, for this, right? Because we're not taking credit for it. So that God has blessed us, and we're thankful for the generous hearts that we have. And we're able to do all these things with our giving. I hope that this has been encouraging to you. I hope that listening to all the impact that we've had on people is encouraging, and that it really helps us to have the hearts to give cheerfully. The thing is that we're not quite done yet. There's still more people to impact. There's still more things around us. And if we just grab hold of the heart of God, we can really continue to have that impact around us. Eddie's just going to come up and share a couple more thoughts.
Isn't that cool, listening to all the sharing? I think too often we don't realize, we as a small family, church family, there's a lot of things we do. And it's out of the abundance we do it. We can rent a place, have some staff, run Sundays every week, and do none of the things that we just mentioned. But because we give generously here, we want to make sure Edmonton is our Jerusalem, right? We want to make sure God's message is available for all people of the city, and we want to grow out. We don't want to just be like, hey, this is Edmonton. We want Alberta, Canada, Western Canada. We want the influence to grow, but we got to start here. You know, I was thinking a lot. This week was coming up, and so many different thoughts come to my head. Like I said, I had like 15 crazy thoughts. But this one idea is that we live such blessed lives. But do we really understand that? Do we really understand that it's crazy? I think it's crazy we don't see it. Don't you think it's crazy when we don't see it? Like, we live in Canada, all right? We have some brothers and sisters moved up from the U.S. We have healthcare. You can walk into a hospital today and walk right in, because the greater majority of the country is paying so that you can have health care. You go to school, you don't pay, okay, we pay fees for a couple extra things, but your kids go to school for free, in essence. You know, we have roads, we have security, we have so many blessings, but I think we don't realize the abundance we have. And I'm defining abundance having having choices. If you actually have choices, you're in a minority group in the world. And let me unpack that a little bit, this idea of choices and why we're blessed because we live in abundance. We have more than enough to survive. Do you have a shelter? Do you have food? Do you have clothing? God promised those things, food, clothing, shelter, you're gonna have. But believe it or not, we actually have choices in that. How many of you chose a dessert or a certain meat or a certain fruit that you wanted to eat and you were able to buy it? How many of you bought clothing that you wanted? How many of you were able to have seconds? How many of you lived beyond bread and water every day? And so what I think Satan really gets us is he gets us in this idea of scarcity. We don't have enough. And we miss the blessings that God has generously given us. In church, we gripe and complain, we don't have this. Guys, we have so much to be grateful for. Our names are written in heaven. Your sins are forgiven. Most of us are functionally healthy. Even with being sick and having our physical challenges, you're actually able to come here this morning. Some of us have overcome cancer. Some of us have seen miracles of health and change in our lives. We have abundance. And if anybody needs to be happy, it should be the Christians. And out of that abundance, we should be abundantly generous. You know, we look at all those events, and I would say we could do so much more if we all decided to be generous. You know, this last couple of weeks, I've been looking at a church building for us. A place to say, okay, I know parking's crazy around here. That's our challenge. We have to figure out parking Sunday morning and walk a little bit, right? Sometimes even pay for it. But we're looking for a place where we can say, okay, let's start here and grow from here. I think it's very possible if we choose to be generous. And if we choose to live in abundance, we prioritize what's important. You know, do we prioritize the treasure of the kingdom? Do we prioritize the treasure of Jesus as we talked earlier? Do we prioritize what Jesus treasures the most? Seeing his children make it to heaven and seeing many, many added to God's family. Paul was reminding the church leaders in Ephesus, and he was calling them out in a way. He was saying, you know what? I want you to consider this. In Acts 20, verse 30, he said to them, I have been a constant example of how you can help those in need by working hard. I want to pause there because we kind of skip over this part. What was the example of Paul's life? I will do anything for Jesus. And then he would call people to follow that example because he was following Jesus, right? What did Jesus do for us? Everything that was needed for us to be whole with God, Jesus did in full. And he did it generously, not reluctantly, not stingently, not under guilt, but out of joy and love. Paul's example was the example of Jesus because Jesus was the ultimate example. Are we working hard, brothers and sisters, to be an example in our lives? Are we going above the minimal that we've created? We create these margins of minimal in our heads, right? Do we go above that? He goes, so he's talking to the elders. These guys were responsible for shepherding the church. And he was saying to them, elder, you should remember the words of the Lord Jesus. It is more blessed to give than to receive. You want to see God work abundantly in your life? You want to see miracles in your life? Follow the example of Jesus. Work hard as a constant example. Be generous to the point where it's just people look at you and say it's crazy. Well, Jesus was crazy enough to love us. Crazy saves lives. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Are we open-hearted in our giving, brothers and sisters? Do we even think about special this year? Do we think about giving weekly, regularly? Are we faithful in that? Are we working hard to be men and women who are approved before God, of that our treasure is in heaven and nowhere else? It's been tough for me, I'll be honest. You know, I could go on certain vacations, I can do certain things I don't do. Because Sibel and I have made a decision, we choose to give to God first. You know, I could invest money in retirement. I'm not there yet. We choose to give God first. I want my treasure in heaven. It's been a battle. I know it's been a battle for all of us. But one thing I can say is we have shown throughout time and time again that when our hearts are right before God, we do the right thing. And we give generously, faithfully, consistently. We don't hold back. It's kind of funny. I was remembering the widow. You guys remember the story of the widow in the Bible? Jesus was at the temple watching. He was watching the widow give. And before anybody, he said, this woman put in her 2 pennies, gave more than anybody else, because she gave it all to Jesus. She gave it all to God. Now, some of you say, well, isn't that crazy because of how the Pharisees lived? Those were the ones who benefit from where they were, you know, they were supported by the temple, right? Isn't it crazy how they ran the temple? Did Jesus even care? What mattered to him is what they did before God. What she did before God 2,000 years later is still an example for us. I don't give because some preacher gave me a reason to give. I give because it's what God calls us to do. It's a blessing. I sacrifice because I want to be like Jesus. I want others to know. I want the next generation to know. I want the church to grow. I want us to do things that have never been done before, but I know it's got to take a heart for Jesus. Is that do we treasure, truly, again, treasure him above and beyond anything else? Because if we do, it'll show through our actions and not just through our words. Because words today are cheap. It's how we follow through with those words. You know, Paul stood behind not just words, but a life that demonstrated nothing more greater that I can do with my life, get myself and get as many people to heaven as possible, and allow God's message of good news to expand around the known world. I think too often we listen to the crazy around us. We don't got enough, we can't give enough, now's not the time, and all these other things. We're robbing the opportunity to see God work in our life, and too often we think it's ours. Who gave it to you? It's not my money, I'm a steward. If Jesus is Lord, I'm a steward. Am I being a faithful steward? Some of the young, I want to share with you, you've been given to generously. Some of you work. It's time to start organizing yourselves to give back generously. Parents, let us demonstrate faith. You know, yeah, so I don't get to go to certain places. So what? My treasure is in heaven. Treasure is the next generation who will get the opportunity to know God. That's the opportunity we have. We get to be a part of something that the reward is eternal, guys. There's no better return. No financial planner can tell you there's no better return than to see people's lives change for Jesus. We do things because we want to give opportunity to people to know God. I want to be able to continue to do that, but even more so. So as a church, I'm calling you to consider. Some of us are swayed, some of us, our giving's gone up and down, but I think more importantly, I want to speak to your heart. What would Jesus say to you about what you treasure the most? Do you love the same way he loved? Would he say to you, hey, to hold back? Why do we hold back sometimes? I think fear. Sometimes I think we use it as an excuse to not give. Yet we've seen so many amazing stories this morning. There are many more stories that are being written today. And you get to be the opportunity to make dreams come true. And I love what Guy said. He goes, you don't know this side of heaven how many thousands of lives you're impacting. Tell me that's not a reward. Tell me that doesn't overflow with joy. This is to remind us, man, we are so blessed. Each one of us has abundance. Each one of us has an opportunity, not just today, but every time we say, hey, here's an opportunity to give. Each time I ask my heart, am I all in again? Will I love you more than possessions? Will I love you more? Am I willing to still sacrifice? Am I willing to give up? Am I willing to do what's hard? Because I know I do it for the stuff I love, but do I love Jesus more than I love my stuff and others? That's the challenge we face, brothers and sisters. These are those defining moments of faith. We get to see God work in our life, or we get to miss out on that opportunity of faith. I want to encourage you this morning. We have these special missions envelopes in front of you. If you have cash, check, or whatever, put the amount in, write your envelope number. If you don't know, put your name on it. This is not the only day we give. We can give any time throughout the year, because what we collect this year, we give next year. We also are going to take our weekly contribution. The great thing is we do have technology. You can give at any time. You can go onto the Tithely app right now, and you can give. Like some of us, we gave earlier, we gave again this morning to special and regular contribution. We get to do that. It is a privilege, because we live in a situation where me giving today, I still know I'm going to be fed tonight. I still know I have a shelter over my head. I still know that God exists and he's going to bless. Let's go to him in prayer as we're about to take up our contribution. So please don't use the special mission contribution envelopes for personal contribution. We're going to take the collection, but let's bow our heads. But more importantly, let's bow our hearts to God this morning. Amen? Dear Father in heaven, we who live in the richest country in the world, in one of the richest cities and most affordable richest cities in the world, we want to thank you for blessing us. God, I know we don't always do the right thing. I know, God, we don't always manage our temptations and our desires, and we tend to put you last at times. Father, forgive us for that. But God, I know in this room we have men and women who generously sacrifice week in, week out, month in, paycheck out. God, I thank you for the generous hearts of the brothers and sisters here. I thank you for their faithfulness over the years. I pray, God, that you will bless our lives, that we will see the many blessings in our life and count those blessings greater than anything else we have. Please, God, help us to step out on faith, to put you first and not last or second or third. Help us to make better decisions by working hard to manage what you've entrusted us with, so that it's obvious, God, that our treasure is you and what you treasure most, more than anything else. We pray what we collect today and throughout this year, God, that we'll be faithful stewards, that we will honor you, and before you that we can stand knowing that, God, we've given you our best. We love you because you've been the ultimate example through your son who gave everything for us.